Good morning, Rob Riley, Director of Financial Services.
And Mr. Clausing?
Morning, everyone. Tom Clausing, Executive Director, MCPS Office of Finance.
Ms. Bergstresser?
Good morning, MJ Bergstresser. I'm the Supervisor of the Internal Audit Unit.
And Mr. Adams?
Morning, Seth Adams, Director, Department of Facilities Management.
And Ms. Webb?
Good morning, everyone. Lori Christina Webb.
Okay, so jump right into our agenda for today. Does anybody have any questions about the informational summary from our May 5th meeting? Okay. The first item on our agenda is efficient operations, use of supplemental grants for infrastructure improvements. And that is going to be talking about some of our sustainability issues. And most directly, we're going to be talking a little bit about an issue that was brought very succinctly and thoughtfully to the board table at our May 25th board meeting, when we had 4 students from the MCR Environmental Affairs Task Force, Bree Akwama Botang, Avika Agarwal, Amy Mundra, and Aparna Ganesh, testify about water bottle filling stations in MCPS schools. And collectively together, they really covered sort of the 360 degrees of that issue, from human health to environmental health and water safety, to the sustainability piece and the budget piece. So hats off to the students for keeping us focused on things that really matter to them in making their schools feel safe and welcoming and healthy spaces for learning. So Mr. Adams, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Again, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present. I would say also, based on that discussion, Ms. Harris, there was a great opinion article written by one of those students this weekend that really did an excellent summary of the advocacy and their work from a student-led perspective. And I would really encourage folks to take a look at that, because it's a well-written and well-encompassing article, just putting together some of the thoughts and approaches around this work.
That's Ms. Botang, and it was in Bethesda Beat. Yeah, I agree. Very well written.
All right. Well, I'll just dive right in. One of the things, and again, from the student advocacy perspective, this is a really important topic, a topic that we have been talking about for many years, and quite honestly, one that where we have implemented but struggled to implement from a system-wide perspective. So what I would say is we have excellent opportunity to address concerns around equity of safe water, equity of facility improvements, and do it in a way that really does allow us to focus on a recovery effort, a recovery of returning, and making sure that we have the facility improvement provisions in place to accommodate all students and staff. What we're going to talk about today is the water bottle filling station approach. And I think there's a lot of folks out there that probably would say, why do you need water bottle filling stations? What is different about, these compared to what we're all used to? And I would say one of the big differences is that obviously you put a sustainability lens on this, making sure that we do reduce the amount of plastic bottles that come through our waste stream. We reduce the large 5-gallon plastic jugs. But at the same time, when you think about where we are with COVID and how students and quite frankly, many of the staff members obtain their water, is through the use of bubblers. The bubblers, for those that are not familiar, are what we can traditionally call water fountains, where you put your mouth really close to the fixture, and I think we would all agree that coming out of COVID, that certainly has not been a process in which we can say with certainty that it is clean and we're doing what we need to from a school and from a use perspective to make sure that they meet the high standards of cleanliness that we've put forth. So again, coming back to our water bottle filling stations, again, we've started this effort over the years. We have for each building renovation, we include water bottle filling stations, but that has not necessarily been a system-wide, district-wide, because it has been focused on individual schools. So we still have 93 schools to go to add water bottle filling stations, as well as 43 of the ones that do have them only have one of the filling stations in operation. So part of our approach moving forward is we do want to take advantage of these supplemental growth grants, particularly these ESSER funds, to focus in on one of the 13 criterias around eligibility. And that one eligibility piece is improving school facilities to reduce risk of virus transmission and exposure to environmental health hazards. So again, when you think about just that simple act of how you get your water at a school building or a public building, this definitely fits within our approach to those efforts. So just to talk a little bit about what we're going to do next. So as we're moving through the ESSER grant application, and those that are wondering what ESSER means, I know we probably use that term a lot, but it is Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. We are working with Deanne Collins and her team, and obviously Dan Morella and his team, to make sure we put together the correct application to take advantage of those funds. What we're looking to do is also on a parallel track, and it is out today, a bid for qualified contractors to put together a proposal to come into each of our schools and to have at least 2 water bottle filling stations at each school. And we were looking to bring that contract to the Board of Education in July for consideration. Some may say, well, how can you bring a contract to the board for consideration without necessarily having the grant approved? One of the ways that we're looking to move this forward is similar to the way these grants have also worked, is look at it as a reimbursement opportunity. So our approach will be to look at the existing, whether it be capital and operating funds, to take advantage of a pretty rapid installation process between now and the start of the year, or even very close to the beginning of the school year, to do as much of this work as possible. And then as we're going through the ESSER grant process, to look at it as a reimbursement process. I would say, there's some risk with that, but I would say this is an area of work that definitely fits well within that grant application process, and we feel very confident that this is one that would have a positive outcome in terms of a reimbursement opportunity. But at the same time, I also know that our county council partners, as we are not a funding body, are also very supportive of this initiative and this effort. So it feels very good to have those partners at both the county council, county executive, and many of our state delegates as we're moving through this. So from a funding perspective, again, when we bring this to the full board, we're going to feel very confident that we're well positioned to take advantage of funds, but also have those partnerships from a county council perspective moving forward. Just a little bit, and again, I think this is important because some may say, is our water safe to drink? I think there's going to be 2 distinctions here. Our water is safe. I do want to be very clear about that. Our water in our buildings is safe. One of the things that we're very focused on is essentially the act of drinking water. And again, back to that bubbler piece where you physically have to have your mouth very close to a fixture. That is the area we're focusing on. But at the same time, I do not want to lose sight that we are constantly working through our lead and water program. We test every fixture. And if there are lead levels that exceed the state guidelines, those fixtures are pulled out of service. But with these water bottle filling stations, it is important to note that they do come with filters. So these filters are point of use filters. They're activated carbon filters that filter out 98+% of any lead. They focus on chlorine reduction as well as particulates in that 0.5 to 1 micron level. So it is a supplement to the Safe Water program, but I think it's really important to differentiate that. if a student does drink from a bubbler during the school year next year, it's not that it's unsafe water, but we're going to have to spend quite a bit of time to make sure that, we work through that process. We make sure that students understand the hygiene that's associated with it. But we do really focus on trying to take advantage of the water bottle filling stations that we put in these buildings. And then the last thing I want to point out, and with every initiative comes an element that we have to focus on safety and training, and that's going to be around our sustainability efforts with these reusable water bottles. Reusable water bottles are the pursuit from a sustainability perspective, again, to reduce those plastics. But we definitely are going to have to put together a robust training plan or messaging plan for our families that there's cleaning and disinfecting that has to go on with water bottles as well. So we don't want some of those unintended consequences of students not cleaning and bacteria growing and then those sorts of things. So there's definitely work to be done around this area, but we feel this is a really important start. And, again, I would reiterate, as Ms. Harris said, the student-led advocacy has really pushed us to get to this point. And we feel this is really a great path forward to find equity, to find opportunities for safer water options for students and staff, and obviously looking to meet our sustainability goals that we have put forth. So with that, I will stop, and I know there's a lot here. And probably lots of questions, but I will turn it back over to you, Ms. Harris, and board members for committee members for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. So I will go to my colleagues first. Dr. Daka, do you have any questions for Mr. Adams?
No, I think Mr. Adams explained things very well. I do remember, though, that a couple of years ago, they talked about the water bottles and their different manufacturers or different kinds. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to keep them updated or whatever. But I did want to comment that in the Post this morning, there was an editorial about virgin plastics. Anyhow, the plastics that they're going to ask people to pay taxes on, which would be minimal. But in the article, it also said that a lot of the plastic that we use is burned. And I think most people don't know that. We separate it out and we put it in the recycling, but it's still burned and it still ends up in the ocean. So this water bottle technique really helps the environment. And I think the students are pretty much aware of that.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Neill.
Yes. So one exception I had with the opinion piece over the weekend was the young lady referenced the fact that when she had gotten turned on the old bubblers, the water was brown and smelly. And I know a great deal of effort had been going on for years by our building service workers in running all of those, and that they are safe. I mean, I appreciate the advocacy, but I also want to say it was a couple of years ago, the board had actually requested a supplemental appropriation from the council. I think it was $2 million. And we adopted a resolution as to replace bubblers as they went out of service with water bottle filling stations. And, I remember we had a list at that time of schools that had water bottle filling stations and those that didn't. So I just wonder if we could have a comparison where, what kind of progress we made since that time. Ms. Ortman-Faust was a real champion for that, and that she was the one that initiated the supplemental request. This is something we wanted to do. We've attempted to do. So I appreciate the resurgence of student advocacy on this, but the board actually had already started down this path. And I think we should have the minutes or the resolution from that earlier action and the list from, where we were to where we are today. And Judy's correct. We had a rather lengthy discussion at the board table. Dr. Zuckerman was with us, that some of the earlier water bottle filling stations, the earlier models did not include those filters, but that the newer ones did, and that we have multiple versions of water bottle filling stations in the schools. I have a question, though. I mean, obviously, that's a lot of discussion that I've just given you, but I would like all that background information, because it's not that we've been sitting on our hands. This is something we wanted to do, and it was not funded by the council, who now seem to have, because they have the windfall of money, of the ESSER money. There is an urgency to it now because of health and safety reasons, but it is something that the board has been advocating and requesting funds for in the past. So, I think credit goes where credit is due. It really was a board initiative several years ago, championed by a board member, Ms. Ortman-Faust. In terms of the filters, do we have any idea, when we have universal water bottle filling stations, how much the cost will be on an annual basis on the filters? And do the building service workers still need to flush those water bottle filling stations like they're required to do on the bubblers?
And those are two great questions. And I guess I'll start with the background piece. Yes, we one of the things that we'd like to do is, as we're moving through this initiative, is to essentially post the background of this initiative, the history of it, post, where we are in terms of, the number of schools, the number of filter stations. We've sorted that by, different categories, number of students in a building, square footages, but we've really narrowed in also on percentage of farms, and trying to understand, how we can make sure that the initiative is equitable as we move forward. But so I think that would be great information to have, and we will certainly look to post that. I think to answer your question specifically around the filter cost and the process of flushing, flushing is important for a variety of reasons, and for us as we implement more and more of the water bottle filling stations, while it may not necessarily be as critical to flush without filters, we still will require building services to flush all filters or all fixtures that are involved in the drinking process in the building. It's an important process. I think the other part I guess I did fail to mention, all but one school is serviced by either WSOC or a local municipality in terms of water, and that water is treated, that water is tested. What their concerns are is actually the water as it works through a building and existing fixtures, and what types of materials and metals and those sorts of things can leach from there. So again, from a flushing perspective, that flushing process is in there to make sure you're able to move that water through, and that even if it's downstream of a filter, you still are able to flush that water out throughout that process. In terms of the filter costs, that's one of the areas that we are looking to focus in on this upcoming operating budget. While filter cartridges are not as expensive as some of the larger air filters that we have in our buildings and those sorts of things, they do add up. And I think for us, the difficulty in it is that they are based on essentially use. So they're recommending to change per every a certain number of gallons of use of that fixture. We are specifying the units with the indicator on it to say, all right, we need a filter change to help our building service teams and our schools track this. But we will be purchasing larger supplies of these filters. We will be setting up essentially a periodically what I would say a 2 to 3 month window to check to verify that the units are still in operating condition. And I think we're also looking to build out a procedure that if after 6 months you still don't see the filter change light, that maybe we change it anyway. So I think there's going to be a couple levels of, we'll have an indicator, we'll have a process in place to make sure that we're staying consistent. And again, it will be reflected in our budget. The one thing I would say, though, about the budget of the filters is that, again, thinking about it from a sustainability perspective, if we can start to offset the costs that we have been supplying around the bottled water and the water jugs, I do think in the long run, this will be most likely a less costly endeavor than where we are in current state. Again, in that lens of sustainability, looking at it from a fiscal sustainability is a big part of it. And filter changes are definitely, and these filters are definitely a lower cost in the long run to providing these bottled water opportunities.
So do we have any water bottle filling station? I mean, from my memory of the last time we had the extensive discussion where there are not filters. I mean, because it seemed to me we had a couple different models that we were using, and it had evolved over time. Do we need to replace those water bottle filling stations with filters? I mean,
yeah. So you are correct. We do have some of the non-filtered. But we don't have to replace the unit. We can just add an inline filter to those.
Okay.
That was a good part of that process. So it's not going to be the added expense of replacing the entire unit, just an inline filter, which, again, as this industry has evolved, there's more and more manufacturers of everything from unit to filters to you name it. So the availability is definitely much greater today than it was 2 or 3 years ago when we began these discussions and these installations. But I would say it's really important that as we roll out our basis of design, we will have obviously multiple manufacturers that can participate, but those manufacturers will have to essentially be able to accommodate the requirements, and those requirements are really going to be around the filter side of this work. And then I guess one last final piece on this, I didn't want to forget this. These bottle filling stations also do include bubblers. Again, that notion of we don't want students to feel like if they forgot their reusable bottle or that they don't have a drinking water option. There are bubblers. We are looking to see how we can push out a stronger initiative to provide students with reusable water bottles. So a lot of that is obviously still part of this overall conversation and part of the initiative too.
So I wonder, thinking ahead to the fall and communications, I know schools give children their supply lists, but, my grandchildren take a water bottle, a reusable water bottle filled every morning to school, and it goes back and forth. But working on a communication strategy to make sure that, when you're sending your child to school, you're sending them with a reusable water bottle. If you can fill it at home, if not, it can be filled at school. But the other piece on the bubblers and the non-reusable water bottles, in terms of budgetary items, it's my understanding like there's some water bottles, the mini bottles are in the food services, and then the bottle, big, multi-gallon, I don't know what you call them, but bottles of water are in the operation in our general budget because the food service also has to give water with the meal. And then also there are many adult meetings that MCPS is providing water for. So some of it the cost of those non-reusable bottles may not disappear unless we re-educate adults, come bring your own BYOB, of water.
100% agree with those comments. This is a bit of a culture change, and as with all sustainable efforts, as we move forward, a lot of it is going to be that engagement, that culture change of how we operate. I would say one positive reaction that we've had this last spring, we were able to, through the sustainability division, provide some reusable water bottles to the secondary students. There were obviously, because of the sheer magnitude of size of buildings, to get access, and that was a great initiative, and we actually even received some great feedback from students that said, this was amazing. The thought around sustainability, but also to provide a water bottle to me was just a really great thing to do. And for us, that's just reinforcing the fact that this is the right thing to do, not only for our students, but for the environment. And you're right, we're going to have lots of conversations as we transition back into schools from COVID around how we do things on a normal daily basis. And particularly when it comes to some of the sustainable features, it's going to be lots and lots of conversations to be had.
So what is the projected cost for completing the water bottle filling stations now?
So where we've left off with the previous bid, we're anticipating to get us to that 2 per school is going to be in that probably $1.5 million range. There's quite a variability in the construction market these days. So some costs have gone up 20 to 30 to 50%. We don't think this particular initiative will be as impacted as others, but until we receive those bids, we won't know necessarily for sure. But we are estimating in that 1.5 million. What we'd also like to do from a procurement standpoint is also bring to the board consideration of bridging a contract with, I believe it's with Frederick County. Frederick County has a on-call plumbing support contract in place. And why that would be important is that, for those maybe the 1 or 2 type of situations at individual schools, we can send in a contractor to just address, those smaller scale. So I think all told, we're looking at about $2 million. Again, that's it'll be between escalations from our past initiative to also us trying to make sure that we put the right number of units in buildings. Again, essentially right sizing the opportunity here, where we are thinking this cost will be about $2 million for this upfront installation.
Yeah, so I would appreciate seeing the background, the historical, perspective, and actually the specific lists of schools where we are.
Yeah, thank you. And I do think I'm at the May 25th board meeting. I think it was Ms. Silvestri that asked for an inventory of which schools had water bottle filling stations.
Yeah, it was me. I asked.
Was it you?
Yeah, it was me, because I also asked about the air conditioning in the gyms, because they were, it was about the same time that the board had taken action on that. So I had asked about the specific inventory on water bottle filling stations and air conditioning in our gyms.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that action item yet, so hopefully we will get that soon. But one thing that I just wanted to comment on, Mr. Adams, I really appreciate your, you've said a couple of times, we're looking, the model right now is 2 units per school, but we have to be really, really cognizant of making sure that we are looking at every school, both its footprint and its enrollment, to make sure that these units are equitably accessible. Because it's not the same, a 400 student elementary school and a 3,000 plus student high school. And even within that range of enrollment, there are, the different footprints. So depending, when we opened the brand new Edison, there's one reusable water bottle, one water bottle filling station in the school, which was great to see, but certainly not equitably accessible to all of the students in the school during the school day. So I appreciate your, mentioning of that as one of the issues that we're looking at when we're looking to get these installed equitably throughout the school system. And another thing I wanted to mention too is, or I guess it's a question. So you mentioned that some of the units that are already installed that do not have the filter capacity currently, and that they would be, there would be the opportunity to install inline filters in those units instead of completely replacing the units. And I guess one of my observations and sort of questions is, to the extent possible, we standardize the units that are in schools so that we also are standardizing our procurement of filters. As a teacher, I certainly was in that had a skills lab classroom. I know sometimes those pieces pass each other a bit. I had hand washing sinks with soap dispensers, and the soap inserts that they sent me didn't match the dispensers that I had. So we really want to make sure that we aren't getting into a situation like that where we have filters in the system and then our inventory that we're dispensing to schools that aren't going to mesh with the units that they're trying to service. So I'm assuming the contract that went out for bid, we will be looking to standardize the units that are installed throughout the system.
Absolutely. And that's, again, I would say we have always had somewhat of a standard here. There were the filtered and non-filtered versions. One thing I would just say, initiatives like this sometimes, again, bring out, or I guess prior initiatives where we were not successful in obtaining funds from the county council, they sometimes bring out a level of inequities along the way. And one of those inequities that we found was that some schools were donated water bottle filling stations. And, some of those donated stations didn't necessarily meet the full specs, but in an effort to support the schools, we weren't going to say, nope, sorry, send it back. We did come in and install a lot of those. But moving forward, that's why I think it's really important for us when we have these district-wide initiatives that we do the work, we do that installation, and then set the standards for how to move forward so that we don't necessarily end up in situations where we do have some units that are installed that don't necessarily fit within those guidelines. But that's back to Mrs. O'Neill's statement around this was a board initiative. It wasn't funded at the time, but certainly one that we have strongly supported and advocated for. But unfortunately, we did end up in a situation where we had a few of the sort of the onesie twosies that made it into the schools that we will certainly have to address. But it wasn't something that we felt it was responsible to just turn away at the time.
So looking at that issue, and I'm glad you raised that because I think one of the forerunners to Ms. O'Neill's discussion of the 2018, I think it was in November 2018 when the board passed its resolution asking for the supplemental appropriation. Part of the background to that was the inequity that you just mentioned, Mr. Adams, about some PTAs buying hydration stations for their schools or some organizations donating those units. And so that was part of the background there. And I'm just curious to ask, from your perspective, looking at efficient operations of the school system, does it make more sense to replace units that, as you said, the school system really didn't control some of those donations? Does it make sense from an efficient operations and a long-term economic kind of stability piece to just replace some of those that are not conforming with the standards of the ones that we want to purchase and install now?
Historically, I would say yes if it were bigger piece of equipment, but I think in this case we're going to obviously look at it on a school by school basis anyway. So if there's things that we have to do a little differently in our operations, meaning it's a different size filter or it's a different procedure for maintenance, we will just work with that individual school and continue the use of those materials. I think, again, trying to make sure, we're stewards of the taxpayer dollar. The optics of pulling out a 1 or 2 year old, piece of equipment just for, ease of maintenance is not something that I certainly would support. So we will continue to use those, but definitely tailor it on a school by school basis.
So I have a question. Am I unmuted? Are we now? It's a standard, when we can do new construction that every school, routinely gets water bottle filling stations?
Yes, our flat standard for for schools. And again, we will tailor, as needed based on capacity, but is 4, 6, and 8, 4 for elementary, 6 for middle, and 8 for high schools. That is the standard for new builds. Certainly this initiative 2 at every school doesn't get us to 8 at a high school, but I think, we can come back and also add as needed along the way. I think one of the things too here, I would just point out is that while that's a good standard to start with, again, this culture shift is really important. We want to have them in locations that encourage use, so we don't want to necessarily be a prohibitive. But also, we're hopeful that, as these are installed, we can work with the local sustainability teams. We can build upon it. We can add more and have them be part of where to locate them in buildings. So again, we want to start with a flat number of at least, and then also look to add, within this first initiative. But I think this is a longer term one where we hope to engage those school sustainability teams along the way as well.
Yeah, it seemed to me from that last discussion that they typically were going into the areas near the gyms first, and but then it also, the issue about water being available at lunchtime also speaks to the need outside of cafeterias or the all-purpose, wherever the lunchroom is as well,
I wanted to just comment on removing things that the PTA has put in. It's a public relations nightmare because they feel really insulted if that happens. So I know that you have to be very delicate about doing that.
Yeah, and Mr. Adams, I did appreciate, you wrapping into the student piece here. I mean, the students are the ones that can really tell us, living in that building every day, where their journey takes them most. And I think getting, talking to the students and how they inhabit that space can help us understand too the best locations to install when and I know there are some infrastructure issues that come with, these things have to be served by water, and that means pipes, and that means access. So, but, wrapping in the students, and you mentioned too, the education piece around having a good communications around bringing that refillable water bottle, and also how to hygienically take care of that water bottle. And I think some of our students have created really good, I guess PSAs, for lack of a better word, little videos that speak to both of those issues. So when we go to do some of the comms around this, I think some of that is already created, and we just have to tap into the students' resource that they have already been working on, because they really are sort of covering all of the landscape around this issue. And I think between Dr. Daka and Ms. O'Neill, most of my questions have been answered, although just speaking, I just want to thank you again for emphasizing once again that our water systems provide safe water, but it's another piece of how that water, the point of entry to our building, and then that water's, journey through the pipe system of any individual school to the point of use. And so that's why we need to be vigilant around testing for lead and other contaminants, and making sure that we are providing truly safe water at where students and staff will be, filling up those water bottles. So thank you for emphasizing that. So any other questions before we move on? And Mr. Adams, anything else you want to add to this piece?
No, just the fact that we will be bringing, contractual elements to the board at their July meeting. So I just wanted to again flag that. Not sure if that will most likely be in the consent items, but certainly welcome the opportunity to talk some more about it at that point too.
Okay, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing that on July 15th. So now moving on to our next agenda item 4, gets to the sexy part of the meeting. First of all, our legislative audit update.
So, Ms. Harris, I want to ask Rob Riley to lead the discussion here. Just as a quick lead off, this is an audit done by the state, every 6 years, and they look into a number of our financial and operating processes and procedures in the school system. I know Mr. Riley is prepared to discuss where we are now, and that we've had some findings in the past that are being reevaluated right now by the audit team, and that we have had corrective action plans in place. And part of the audit's purpose is to see how effectively we corrected previous violations or findings. So let Mr. Riley take off here and enjoy.
Yeah, and I do want to thank you all, because one of the things that you did when we were planning the agenda for today was make sure that all members of the committee had a copy of the 2016 state OLA audit. And so we could review the findings from 2016, which also referenced some of the findings from the 2009 audit. So I think that was really, from my perspective, really good background to have, speaking as a new member of the board. So Dr. Daka and Ms. O'Neill have more experience at this than me, but I very much appreciated that background.
Yeah, thank you very much. Rob, you're up.
Good morning. And there should be a PowerPoint associated, or thank you. So legislative audit update. So the word audit, I know it strikes fear in a lot of people, and it's kind of a tough topic for some people, but I actually enjoy audits. I think a lot of people on this call actually do as well too. Looking at audits through like a lens of continuous improvement. I know for me, over my career, I've been working with audits my whole career, and there's always room for improvement. And I like to take something from every audit as an improvement to move on. So if you look at it that way, I think they're not as intimidating. So with that said, next slide, please. As Ms. Morella said, these audits occur every 6 years, and it's as per the Annotated Code of Maryland. Just to give you a brief history, so our previous ones were the final report was January 2009, and then our most recent was May of 2016. And you might say, well, they started in FY 2005, why did it take so long to get to the 2009 one? And it's mainly because we were one of the last ones in that first round. And to get through all 24 LEAs, there are usually two teams that Department of Legislative Services works with OLA. But those teams, have to cover all the different school districts. And one of the issues that we'll get into later is it's a little different than our annual financial audit, because they're not just looking at financial aspects, they're looking at operations too. And the other piece to this is their scope is every 6 years. So they're looking at, for instance, the audit they're doing now, they're looking back to our previous one of FY 2016. So that's where, that's why it does take some time. Another piece of history. So the first round went pretty successful for most school districts in Maryland. But at the end of it, there was a little pushback because they started, the OLA started getting ready for the next round. And as you can imagine, these audits, the fact that they take so much, the scope is so large, they do take a lot of staff time. So I don't know if, be careful what you ask for, but I asked to be, I'm the liaison for this audit, so I asked to be included on all emails. So at this point for this audit, I'm up to about 2,500 emails that have gone out to all the different directors and managers within the system. And the reason I did that, I just want to be kept abreast of all topics that might be coming up. But also at the end of this process, we're going to have some discussion notes and some recommendations. And I just wanted to have the whole history of how that started. So it's a lot of work on our staff system-wide. So what I was getting to is some of the smaller districts after that first round were kind of throwing their hands up and saying, hey, this is a real burden on our school districts. We only, in some cases, they might only have a few people in finance. So they actually did negotiate to get an exemption. Now, it's a little tricky topic because if you're looking for an exemption on an audit, it may not look well, in the public's eye. Like why are you asking for exemption? Is there a problem? But I think overall there was an understanding that the reason they were asking was because really, after we went through FY 2008 and 2009, those tough times, there was just no way that they could have assisted in completing those audits. The only bad thing is it's really not, it didn't eliminate the audit. It was kind of a deferral, because now these school districts that were exempt, they're going through their third round here, and the scope of those audits is actually the past 12 years. So, which, you know, it kind of defeats the purpose of saving that time from staff, because eventually the auditors are really looking at everything. So the objectives of these audits are to evaluate whether your procedures and controls are effective in accounting and safeguarding assets. That objective is actually very similar to our annual financial audit as well as the next one, determine if MCPS policies provided for efficient use of financial resources. The difference is when Clifton Larson are doing our annual audit, they're really just looking at certain departments, really the Office of Finance and Procurement. It's limited the number of divisions and departments they're looking at, whereas here, those financial resources could come from anywhere. So next slide, please. So for instance, some of the areas that they're going to look into, or that they're in the process of looking into, are, in addition to revenue and cash collections, they're looking at the whole purchasing and disbursement cycle. They're looking at payroll and human resources. They do a lot of work on information system security and student transportation, and any other programs that we administer. They do, in this legislative audit, they do place some reliance on previous audits. So that's one of the first things that they asked me for, was what's our previous audits? And then they get some confidence that they don't necessarily have to dig that deep into certain areas that are looked at on an annual basis. So we get some relief there. But you can see the scope is pretty massive. And they're looking at transactions, they're looking at our records, our procedures, and controls since the previous audit. That's basically their scope. Next slide, please. So here, I just wanted to give you an indication of where some of these findings are. In the first one, we had I guess I'm mixing terms, but instead of findings, they call them recommendations. So there were 19 recommendations in the first audit. And I think some of you were around. We did a good job of MCPS did of looking and digging into those findings after they occurred, and getting with the different departments and groups in meetings such as this. I think it's in the Financial Management Committee's purview to kind of dig deep and see what happened, how can we improve. So you can see by the next audit, by May 2016, the number did go down. It's 16 recommendations. And that actually, it's a function of us improving our internal controls, but also it's also based that fact that we listened and took the advice of OLA on the initial recommendations. So for instance, to give you an example, in that first round of audits, I believe almost all school districts in Maryland had a recommendation for providing an anonymous fraud hotline for folks, and everybody basically implemented it from what I recall. So that's one that, that's one of the reasons why recommendations should go down. And I'm not, I don't want to make too many, I don't want to read into this too much, but I believe that going forward, the number of our recommendations for the next audit will go down as well for this audit. Though knock wood, you never know what's going to come up. But overall, I review other audits from the other school districts as they go through, and the overall number have been going down in each iteration. So this is our third review, third round of audits, and they are going down, all the audits. So the recommendation.
Rob, this is Dan. If you don't mind, I'd like to also add, within the last year, we have developed, implemented, and started an internal control review team that Rob and Mr. Klausing are overseeing, and we're just finishing up our first review. These are not audits. These are where we have a team of people go in and look at effectiveness and efficiency and see how we're doing on a number of different operational, fiscal type items. The first one we did a review on is segregation of duties in some of our financial systems. And I'm sure once I'm gone here very soon, that these individuals would be bringing forward results from those internal control reviews also. I think they're a very timely, effective, and efficient way to look at our processes. I do believe there will probably be some findings with this first review, and I agree with Mr. Riley 100%. I think these are only good. I think that we'll be able to be more effective moving forward. I would always rather know where my problems are than bury my head in the sand. And I think this is going to be a really good program that we just implemented going forward. And if Ms. Harris and Ms. O'Neill and Ms. Daka choose to, we can bring forward the results of these reviews at every meeting. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. And actually, internal review of your internal controls is actually an excellent internal control in itself. And I did bring up that point that we were going through this and that you initiated this to our annual auditors, as well as these legislative auditors. And they were so impressed. They said they'll do in addition to the recommendations, they'll do a report, but they'll also bring up some best practices that are initiated from some school districts. So I got a feeling that it will be in the report that we took the initiative to review our internal controls. So thank you for bringing that up, Dan. Last slide, please. So just to give you a recap, so their initial letter to Board President Wolf went out on December 29th, 2020, and field work started right after that in January. And they're I guess they're 3/4 of the way done now. They were telling me they expect to conclude sometime in July or August. And again, it does seem like an awful long time, but it's pretty, in my talks with with CFOs across the state, this is the standard time. Nobody really gets it done within 6 months, and it doesn't usually take too much more than a year, but we're right in line here. So post-field work, assuming they're going to finish by somewhere around September 1st, the post-field work will start then, and that's going to take about 3 months. And the process there is they'll present to me and the superintendent some discussion notes in draft form. At that point, there's some back and forth between us and them to see if they really had all the information they need to make that decision. Sometimes there's a case where there's some kind of miscommunication where they'll have a draft discussion note and, we'll say, hey, we already provided you that. Either, you didn't see that or you didn't take that into account. So there's some back and forth there. And there's also some, they call them table items, which are things that don't rise to the level of a discussion note, just like a best practice item that they might bring up. And that won't be in the report. But after that, once the report's finalized, we're going to have to come up with responses for that. And then we'll come up with corrective action as well, too. And that's where, like I was saying before, I believe this committee is going to play a key part in that to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row and that we have processes in place to address any findings or any recommendations that they put towards us. So I think as a team, we'll be able to tackle this successfully. Like Dan said, I think there'll be some findings. I don't think we're going to get away scot-free, but I think we'll be in good shape going forward. So that should do it for legislative audit, but I'm willing to hear any questions and see if I can answer them.
So I will go first to my colleagues, Dr. Daka and Ms. O'Neill. Questions?
Yeah, I was looking at Thomas Barnickel's report, which you sent to us, and I did read, and I have 22 items that I have questions about. And I guess the reason I have questions is that I was in charge of planning for 12,000 employees in the old days when we had 2 days off for going to Ocean City. And people who did not go to Ocean City had to come back and sign into classes. So I am familiar with procurement and accounting and some of the rules. So that's why I'm questioning some of the things they're saying in the report that we don't do. Did they not read some of our information, or did we not send it to them? Because they talk about the bidding process. And we know that when we do the bids, we follow the state's recommendation because they do the testing of whether it's female, handicapped, ethnically, So we usually use whatever they say. So are they saying because we do that we're doing one company did? I just don't know. Disaster recovery plan, work orders. That was a good one because we get questions about work orders all the time, and they're saying that we did not respond to so many work orders and that we need to tighten up there. Well, we probably do need to tighten up there. There was another one in here of the 22 about legal expenses that we were not able to let everybody know who's doing the report whether our legal expenses were appropriate and why they were appropriate and how they were appropriate. They just didn't seem to have that information. So I don't know whether it's our problem or not. And transportation, I thought this was an interesting one. They said sometimes we have buses with 50 kids on it. Well, yeah, we've got kids going to special programs, so they're not going to have 55 students on there. So maybe there are things they just didn't understand about our whole school process. And I won't go through all 22, but I just wanted to give
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. You bring up a good point because when I first started the discussions with them for this audit, they looked through and they're looking through the same report that they did last time too. And they said, hey, there was an awful lot of auditor comments. So the process is they'll give us a recommendation, we'll give us a response, we'll give them a response. And if we disagree slightly, they come back with an auditor comment, basically them getting the last word. And you're right, because a lot of the things, our response was like, hey, we agree, but we also disagree for this reason. And I wasn't here for the last one, but I believe that there wasn't enough discussion between us and the auditors to kind of get our point across, because you don't really want to see these auditor comments at the end. That's what they said too. Like they don't usually see it. So I think it was like you were saying, Dr. Daka, maybe a miscommunication or them not understanding what our true process was and how maybe our process might be slightly different than what they were used to, but it gets the job accomplished. So that's why, even if this process takes more than a year, I want to make sure that we're on they understand where we're coming from, because you're right. I think some of the things that they brought up as recommendations weren't necessarily valid, in my opinion.
Hey, Rob, can I also add, I've also seen over all my years of auditing, quite often what will happen there is the auditors will come in with a request for information or questions regarding a process, and then we will provide evidence we believe is sufficient to show our point. And quite often the auditors are going to say the evidence you provided is not enough. We need more evidence than what you've given us. And they'll stand very, very firm on that, even though we know what we're doing is correct, such as on a procurement. If we don't provide all of the data they've requested specifically, they'll make it a finding, even if what we did was procedurally and legally correct. If the amount of evidence given at that time by the procurement team was not sufficient in their opinion, they will leave it as a finding. So the fact there isn't that we're not doing it. We didn't do a good job providing evidence that they accepted for that finding. And I find that to be a large majority of findings are because the auditee doesn't have on hand or access or has created the proper evidence to give to the auditors.
So, on Dr. Daka's point, one of the things that we all discussed when we were planning the agenda for today was using the 2016 OLA report and the complete report with the school system's response to the recommendations and findings. And then, as you all have already noted, some of the auditors' responses to our responses. And this is an opportunity for you to kind of give us an update on where the school system is in responding to some of the issues raised in 2016. So are there some things that you just want to highlight at this point that might get to some of Dr. Daka's specific items that she picked up?
When I came on board in 2017, we actually, after that time, we were actually finally wrapping up on the issues. And from what I read, it looks like we have addressed all of the issues that were there, currently. So I don't anticipate that there will be repeat findings this go around. But with that said, they haven't given me any preliminary findings yet. I have asked them to keep me updated because of this situation. The sooner we know, what might be a recommendation, the better we can address it and discuss these things without going too far into the future. But as far as I know from the responses I'm seeing, because like I said, I'm on all the emails, I'm seeing responses that say, hey, this is what we've done since the previous audit.
Yeah.
And if they I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, I found it, I think as a starting point for me to focus on the current legislative audit going on, looking back at the 2016 audit was very important. I want to note though, under COMAR, there is only one committee that is required by the Board of Education, and it is an audit committee. The board expanded the scope of this committee to be more broadly fiscal management. But I really believe, as good custodians of the taxpayer dollars, when the current audit is completed, we need to, with the deficiencies or recommendations, whatever I think that we need to, as a committee, work through those or review. And, specifically like the last one included student transportation and also maintenance of the fleet. I could see us on a go forward basis having Todd Watkins, come and give us an update of how do we determine the routing now. I know it's computer assisted. I know at one point, one of the findings about the health insurance that MCPS then went back. And I know there was a lot of disgruntled employees, verifying that who's on the plan really is entitled to be on the plan. The issue of, now it's under, because of the healthcare law, it's up to age 26, but also does your spouse have other health insurance? MCPS has taken, but, and I know, like it called out food service. Well, I think that right now we know we still have the $400,000 in student debt, lunch debt. Then we also have on, the expenses occurring with the 20 million meals that were served throughout the pandemic. We know that in food service, we're going to have to somewhere come up with the money. I think the committee, we need to, after the audit's done, look at the recommendations, but also sort of anticipate some of these big bucket items that have a significant amount of money attached to them.
Ms. O'Neill, I couldn't agree with you more. Traditionally, what has happened is audit findings, and I don't know why it's always been this case, have fallen back to the finance team to do the explanation, just because we're the point of contact with the auditors. I couldn't agree more that the programs where the findings are occurring should be the ones coming back and explaining progress being made and plans being put in place to eliminate that finding. So I couldn't agree more with you.
So my suggestion would be that our committee, have an update, on the, where what progress. I mean, I know they're talking to the Office of Legislative Audits, but the transportation, what do we do differently, or what are we doing with, routing of students, student transportation, and also the tracking of maintenance orders on the buses, because that was an area that it called out. And then, as I pointed out, the food service.
Yeah, that's a great point. And even if we don't do them all in one meeting, we can do them over the course of time where we address 5 or 6 items and really dig deep and like you said, Ms. O'Neill, see how have we improved.
Yeah, I liked one of them that said we don't send enough dunning letters because, we're trying to get the funding back. So can't do anything right. I think CPAs are just picky.
Except for our friend Rob. He's not picky at all, Mrs. Daca. Rob is one of the few people you'll ever meet who's a CPA who's now working on his doctorate in accountancy. I didn't know there was a doctorate in accountancy, but Mr. Riley's going to have one very soon.
Well, it wasn't he who sent the letter. It was Brick, whatever. Okay, thank you.
We're lucky to have you, Mr. Riley. So I do have one question, building on something you said, Mr. Riley, about these preliminary findings as the audit is moving forward before we get the big report. Is that something that typically happens? And if so, would it be appropriate for us to discuss, preliminary findings as they are shared with you?
I mean, that's a good suggestion. The only thing is sometimes the preliminary findings are, like I was saying, it's a case where we didn't provide enough information to them. So I'm not sure if the preliminary would be appropriate, but I think once it becomes a finding, although to your point, I mean, there might be something that us in finance didn't consider in our response. So yeah, I mean, if that preliminary finding is big enough, I would say that could be a good suggestion where we kind of bring in, like, let's say if it's about transportation, bring in Todd to one of these meetings and maybe we kind of help construct our response based on this group here.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill.
I'm not saying there's a transportation finding, I just as an example.
Ms. O'Neill, Dr. Daca, any other questions for this part of the agenda?
No, I mean, what I started to say, I'm married to someone who's a CPA and an attorney, but he is a very picky person by nature. I mean, those of us who might have been social science majors are not as attuned to, the fiscal responsibility, but we do have a responsibility to the taxpayers. And so I think it would behoove us to look at the big buckets. I mean, obviously healthcare costs, and I know we have looked at it, but broadly, I've only recently come back to being on fiscal management. So I'm not sure, immediately following the last legislative audit, how the topics were brought to the committee. But, I think the big buckets, like transportation and food service and healthcare. And I know, we do have a new fiscal management system. So some of the controls that were referenced in the old and the last audit may have been corrected or may not apply because with the new financial management system. But I think it would be worthwhile for us to take up looking at some of those issues over time, obviously not all at one meeting, but to be able to have that in-depth conversation.
And I have to say my sister's a CPA, so I'm not condemning the whole group. But anyway, I know that it's very important to have all these points, but I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Are we not reporting everything, or they're not listening to the things that we're reporting? Because some of these violations, I don't think we do, based on my experience of having worked with accounting and procurement and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll make sure that communication happens and we don't have any issues where there's a miscommunication. I'll guarantee that.
Okay. Well, I am very grateful that we have folks like Mr. Riley and Ms. Bergstrasser, and I was going to say Mr. Morella, but he's leaving us. on staff that really do. I mean, that's their gift. They take a gargantuan school system like we are with a $2.7 billion operating budget annually, and they make sure that we are being really good stewards of the taxpayers' funds. And that is, I think, incredibly important and really a true public service. So very, very grateful for the work that you do. Next agenda item is looking at our independent activity fund accounts. And I appreciated when we were planning for this meeting, several of us observing that, you know, the varying amounts in those 208 funds raises some significant equity issues. So anyway, I will turn it over to, I'm not sure who's going to handle, Mr. Morella?
So I'd just like to kick this off. This is where you're going to see the picky CPA, Mr. Riley. He's going to discuss here some of the reporting changes on how we do report IAFs in our annual financial statements and audit. For the true CPA, this will be interesting. For the rest of you, when we get to the questions, I think it'll be a lot more interesting about balances at different schools. And that's where MJ can help us a lot on those types of questions. So MJ, please don't hesitate if you can help us with some of those questions. You are in those details every day, and you do see some of those inequities with the school balances and the fundraisers and stuff. So please, Rob, go ahead and kick it off. But I would really appreciate, MJ, if you could help with some of that with the questions.
I just want to say IAFs are very interesting to me because I have to supervise IAFs, and it'll be great to hear about. There's some concerns, I know.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so like Dan said, there's two, well, it's kind of accounting related, but there's two, and there should be a PowerPoint for this as well too. And next slide. So there's two issues I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention today. So the accounting piece, it's a new government accounting standards board pronouncement. It's GASB 84. And there's been a lot of talk of this over the last few years, actually. And last year was actually supposed to go live, but because of COVID, we didn't put it into effect till this year's annual comprehensive financial report. Hey, by the way, too, while I have you, normally the term is comprehensive annual financial report, but both GFOA and ASBO, some of our finance groups have been looking at this, and the abbreviation for comprehensive annual financial report is actually, it turns out, a derogatory term. So they've actually changed it to annual comprehensive financial report, or you'll be hearing me say ACFR. So where I used to say the other, it's now ACFR. So one of the things they looked into, or they have been looking into over the last couple of years, is agent or fiduciary funds. So fiduciary funds include our pension fund. It includes our OPEB fund. These are funds that we have fiduciary responsibility for, though they're not necessarily MCPS funds. In other words, we can't dig into the pension fund or OPEB fund for, once it's in that trust, we're just taking on a fiduciary responsibility. So another fund that was in this category was independent activity funds, formerly called agency funds. So what GASB looked into was, do these really fit that model? And the determination was no, that going forward, they're not going to be considered a fiduciary fund. So the reason was because there's some criteria that had to be met. If, for instance, we being MCPS management, didn't have any administrative control over the funds, then we could make a case that it truly is a fiduciary fund. But the fact that all the procedures that IAF follow really is the financial manual, which management puts together. We have a big administrative role in the independent activity funds. So with that said, all the CFOs and all the finance people got together and discussed it in Maryland. And the conclusion was that really nobody is going to have it as a fiduciary fund anymore, the IAFs. I tried to make a case in front of my peers saying that I really think it should be a special revenue fund. The reason I was saying that, because if it's a special revenue fund, we would have a special column for it in our ACFR, and it wouldn't be like it's, hey, now it's no longer visible. But after talking with our auditors and all the other LEAs too, I guess I misinterpreted, and we can't call it a special revenue fund. So the way it's going to appear is it's going to be rolled into our general fund. Now, it sounds like, hey, you're getting rid of student funds and you're putting into the general fund for use. But, you know, I'm saying that, but it's really just a reporting function. So in other words, MJ and her group, they're going to continue to monitor the independent activity funds, and it's going to, in our system, it's still going to be a separate fund. But if you go to our ACVR, you're not going to see a column or a statement that says independent activity fund, and it will be in the general fund. Now I'm going to address it in the notes, and it'll be addressed in management discussion analysis that the funds are no longer. It's not that they're no longer there; they're just appearing as part of the general fund. And basically, it just comes down to these accounting rules that they've developed, and now it's a pronouncement that we had to put into effect this year. So I don't know if you guys have any questions on that before we move on to the other topic. Like Dan said, it's kind of deep in the weeds of accounting, but I wanted to make you aware if you were looking at a report and saying, hey, where did they go? Where's our independent activity funds? So what we're going to do is it won't be in our big report at the end of the year, although it's either in the next meeting or the one after that. And Mrs. Bergstresser, MJ will be reporting on them on a per school basis. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the detailed information is not going to go away. You're just not going to see it in the final rolled up report.
You know, so Mr. Riley, I'm going to just ask a couple of questions, just if we could, I think maybe back up a little bit, because I think there is a lot of misunderstanding or lacking of understanding between a lot of folks in our communities, students, families, parents, teachers, staff, about what the IAF funds, the independent activity funds are, how does the money in those funds accrue, and what are the permissible uses for that money? As I know, even as a teacher, I have heard multiple different understandings of all of those things. And certainly at every school that I was a part of the community, I heard different understandings about all of those things. So if we could just get a quick summary background for people, common set of understandings going forward, what they are, where that money comes from, and what uses that money can go to, I think that would be helpful.
So the revenue that comes in comes from a variety of different sources, and it's the uses and the allowable uses are addressed in Chapter 20 of our financial manual. But MJ, I'm going to, since Dan kind of put you on the spot there, I'm going to ask you too. Since you're auditing these, can you give Ms. Harris some examples of what the particular revenues are for, such as cell tower revenue, and what the rules are for spending?
Sure, great. So as Rob said, we have a financial manual, Chapter 20, and that deals with the IAF and all the rules and procedures. So schools do generate money, and they generate it in different ways. One of the biggest ways is fundraising. And again, some schools are very successful and some schools aren't. Some schools have booster clubs. Some have PTAs or PTSAs. A few have foundations. Not every school gets cell tower money, but it is dispersed among a large majority of them, but in various amounts. And that MCPS, puts that together. The schools generate the money, it belongs to the students. It's supposed to be used on the students. Some schools get donations and grants that have particular purposes so that they can only be used for that purpose. Schools generate pitcher money, which is a great revenue for schools. Unfortunately, this year, we didn't get that. High schools get parking money, but that goes in the athletic budget, so that is separate for them. So they all bring in different amounts in different ways. if that answer, I mean, it's hard to explain how each one brings in what, because they're all very different depending on their size and also with their community. You know, we have schools that have a lot of participation, and then we have schools that struggle. So,
and what you'll find, again, Jay, when you're referring to the cell tower, well, MCPS has an arrangement with the cell tower, you know, the providers, that the money will go to the school that's hosting the tower itself, and then it'll be spread among the other schools within that 25 or high school units. So if a school within the Wheaton High School district gets some money for cell tower, it's shared within the entire schools in that district. So there's different ways of spreading those resources. But what is true there, and I think the most important point, is the fundraising and the charity where the communities provide money for the school. And there is a very, very large imbalance from school to, or different balances from school to school based on the effectiveness of fundraising within those communities. So the students with the greatest fundraising do get a greater benefit than the schools that don't have that same ability. What you'll see also, and MJ didn't mention this, is within the IAF, MJ is aware of multiple accounts within the IAF that the money is brought in and expensed and tracked. So, I mean, we could do an entire session from MJ just going through the process of a dollar coming into the IAF, how it's expensed and sent out. But yeah, there are allowable uses. And as MJ said, primarily it is for the student's benefit and nothing else. And the principal the principal and the leadership of the school makes those determinations. But yeah, it's what you'll see, and I know you're aware of this, when MJ would show you a report, the balances vary greatly from school to school and from school district to school district within MCPS.
Yeah, and I mean, so I guess one question to clarify for many, and I hear this question a lot, is does MCPS itself contribute anything to these IAFs? No.
well, I mean,
is no.
Okay.
sorry.
A question that I have been hearing, and I assume that my board colleagues have as well. I mean, many of these, especially at the high school level, have hundreds of thousands of dollars in them. And looking at last year, the 2019-2020 school year, when students had done a great, and organizations, booster clubs, as you mentioned, PTSAs, foundations had done a lot of fundraising for traditional end-of-year student events that did not happen. Are those monies going to be in any way refunded to the students who raised that money for their prom, for their after prom, for their banquet, for whatever, and it didn't happen? Or is that just, thank you, you have paid it forward to those who come after you?
I'm not sure if you'll like the answer, but it's being paid forward is what's happening. We're not doing reimbursements to previous classes. So you're correct.
I'll ask Ms. O'Neill, Dr. Daka, if they have any other questions, at this point before we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I will say, and it sort of relates back to the water bottle filling station conversation. There are two board policies. One is C&D and one is C&E, and one relates to fundraising, which is the board policy about, that encompasses PTSAs and booster clubs, et cetera. And that, is pretty darn comprehensive. I think that some schools may not necessarily bring it front to mind, and the other is about facility enhancements. And it is very specific that it is intended for things that are not funded by MCPS, because the basic premise is if it's something everybody should have, it should be funded by MCPS so that there is equity among schools. And it also sets a threshold of for approval over $50,000. It is something we haven't seen a report updated from facilities management in a while, but it is something that we used to receive an annual report about improvements. And, you know, it might be a specific school bought picnic tables or bought benches or redid the courtyard with a garden. So it would have fallen under the $50,000 threshold, but we were still getting a report. And I think it would behoove us to ask facilities management to go back to completing that, because we do want to make sure that all of our buildings are funded by MCPS and with the basic standards, such as the water bottle filling stations.
Thank you. Dr. Daka, do you have any questions at this point? Okay, sorry to interrupt. Thank you. I will turn it back over to Rob and team.
So the only other item I wanted to bring up about our IAF funds, and if you can go, I think 2 more slides down. I kind of jumped a little. 1 more, yeah. So this year, it just so happens that our school accounting software and the online payment that parents use to make credit card payments, those contracts were both coming up due this year. So I'm on the committee that prepared the RFP, and what the idea was that we were going to kind of create or put out there that we wanted an integrated system that would address both. And we got some bids. Some of them, there were a few different options. We would have had to either change both our accounting software and our online component. We'd have to change or one or the other. So what the committee, and the award, it's already been awarded, it was awarded last week. I think it went in front of the board, but the company we went with is basically the same company that's providing our accounting software, but we're also going to be using their online component, which is going to be new. The group felt that learning a new accounting software for the folks in the schools would just be too much, especially after having to learn the new financial software, the hub. In addition to the product that we chose, actually has a lot of great features, and so I just wanted to update you that the transition is going to happen over the course of a year. So the model is that about 50 schools are going to be converted every few months. And we did work out an agreement with our current online payment platform that would still be available for parents as we roll this out and do the conversion. And finance is working with technology as well as communication for that transition. Just to let you know too, so the RFP committee, we had about 10 or 15 IT folks on it, because actually the contract is under IT. And then we also had functional people as well to procurement, in addition to finance, because the particular software, in addition to internal audit, affects a lot of different departments in the system. So it was a group effort to determine the who to award the contract to. But I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you hear from schools, that we are going to be rolling out a new online payment component.
And what's very fortunate for us is, as you all know, Debbie Camp retired earlier this year, and we've been able to bring on board the school business administrator from Clarksburg to serve in a similar role to Ms. Camp. And she's going to lead in the training transition to the schools, because she has worked in the schools for many 25 years, I believe. So she's going to lead that training rollout for us, which I really believe will smooth some of the questions and bumps as we move forward. So we're very fortunate to have Ms. Eater part of the team so she can do this rollout for us.
And that's all I had.
Okay, so I'll go back. Ms. O'Neill or Dr. Daka, any questions about that last little bit?
Just on online school payment, does that cover the payments for lunches?
No, that's a good point. So we used a different vendor for lunch payments, but that's going to be as it was. So the only new thing will be for student activities, field trips, for instance. That'll be the new platform.
So, Mr. Riley, could you just quickly just summarize the things that our community members will be able to use the new online payment system for?
Yeah, anything that's offered by the school, for instance, like I said, field trips, spirit wear, items to that, but other than food service, other than meals.
So it would have to be by the school as an entity, not in partnership with if a high school's or a middle school's booster club handles the spirit wear. Will there be a tie-in since it's sort of a partnership, or no?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be Booster Club because we keep that separate. But other items that are normally flow through IAF that they accept money for, this would be an option for the parents to pay. There's some central office uses as well too, but it's mainly a product for parents with the individual schools. And then you know the process. So the person at the school actually sets up an item, so for instance, the field trip, and then makes it available to parents within that school that have students for that to pay using that method. And
with this new system, so I'm hoping, you mentioned all the people that were part of the team putting this system together and getting it, the contract in place and everything, and the vendor. Did we beta test that with the end user so that it's actually easier than the current system, which was not always very easy?
They did. We had a lot of good feedback. They did offer us a sandbox, and a lot of the members within the group that tested it had children in the school. So we were able to kind of see how you have multiple children in multiple schools. You just go to one place and you can kind of take care of payments for all of them at one place. It also does a great job of capturing student obligations and student debt. The previous or the current way that we do it is a little not as easy as this will be as part of the integration. So that was one of the pluses as well too. But we did get good feedback. We also reached out to the references that they provided and only heard great things. So there are a couple of other school districts in Maryland too that use it. We reached out to them and they're very happy and satisfied with this particular component.
Thank you. Anything else before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, so that takes us to our internal audit end of year report.
Okay, great. So I do have a PowerPoint just to go over. So this is basically an update of the annual report that I present typically in the September meeting. So this is basically just here to tell you what we've done with the IAF and give you some information. So the next slide. So internal audit responsibilities, we divide them up into 5 broad categories. The first one's management and coordination of the external audit, which Rob touched on. Then the financial and compliance audits and reporting. Then we have operational audits and assistance to managers and staff. And then we assist with some investigations. So I'm going to go over each one of these individually. Next slide. So the first one is management and coordination of the external audit. So every year, as Rob says, we are required to have an audit of the financial transactions and accounts. And internal audit coordinates the contract with the outside auditors and assists the auditors with this annual audit. We also coordinate and assist different groups, such as the Maryland State Office, the Department of Education, which is MSDE audit, which we just concluded. So we've had that one. And we also help with the outside, the Office of Legislative Audits, as Rob said, is going on right now. So those are some of the things that we assist with and coordinate. The next slide. The next is the financial and compliance audit. And I'll go over these, but it deals with the independent activity funds, the central investment fund, and then the consolidation of the school financial statement, which is the annual comprehensive financial report, the AFFR, is how we say it. So the financial and compliance audits are made to determine whether the internal controls and accountability for assets and liabilities are adequate and whether the financial reports are complete and accurate. We also make sure whether financial administrative operations comply with the Board of Ed policies and MCPS regulations and procedures. So this year we got, even being with COVID and everything else, as of May 31st, we have done 95 school audits. Out of the 208 schools, we have approximately $18 million in the IF. Schools overall collected approximately $20 million as of May 31st and dispersed approximately $14,000.5 million. So that's in the independent activity funds. And again, when we do our other data reporting, we give the breakdown as to schools in a lot more detail. We also audit the Central Investment Fund, and we look at that every year. And as of March 31st, the interest rate is still, unfortunately, only at 0.25%. But we had, this year so far, we've had $2.5 million deposited into the CIF by 201 schools. So last year we only had 200 schools. We did get one more school to put money into the CIF, and we're trying to get all the other schools to invest. Some just don't have the money. Some, it's just that they just opened and they just aren't doing it yet. But we are really encouraging all schools to put money in the CIF to generate some money, to support the school. And as of May 31st, the balance in the CIF for all schools was $12 million approximately. And then at the end of every fiscal year, the audit unit, we obtain and consolidate all the financial records out of every school's IAF. And I put together a whole spreadsheet, and that's sent to Rob's office, and that goes into the AFCR. And then again, we will present that at, the next meeting. So next slide. So when we talk about the audits, so this is a breakdown of the school audits that we had and the findings. I know that that's been a big topic of conversation, so I wanted to kind of just give you a graph of what we found in the 95 audits that we've done. So out of the 95, we had 25 schools that had no reportable findings. And I broke that down a little bit more for you. So you can see the first column, 11 schools had no findings at all. And then 14 of the 25, they had no findings this audit and in a prior audit. So that would have been 2 back-to-back clean audits, which, is great. And it's definitely an improvement. Then you can see we had 41 schools that had 1 to 3 findings, which is, that's not that bad. They can be bigger, they can be small, but we only had 1 to 3. Then I broke it down. Of the 25, we had 29 schools that had 4 or more findings. So with these type of schools, we're doing more of a risk analysis, and we'll be looking at going back to these schools on a more regular basis, seeing how we can support them. Do we need more training? What do we need to support the schools to get this number down? So that's our goal, is to get that down. And then the next slide. So we called it the clean as a whistle audits. So I just wanted to give you an overview. These are the 25 schools that had a clean audit this year. And if you look at the asterisk, those are the schools that had back-to-back clean audits. So, and the board wanted fireworks, so there we have fireworks to applaud. So what we say is when we go out to the audits, it can be done. Schools can do it. They just need help. And then that's our main goal, is not to keep slapping them on the hand, but how can we help? What can we do, to make sure that you understand all the rules, all the policies, everything else, and that, we can get the support that they need. The next slide. So just some of the operational audits we do payroll audits. We audit the cell tower and student parking. With payroll being such a large portion of MCPS, we do try to get out and make sure that, the procedures are in place, the time is being reported accurately, people are being paid appropriately. So we really do want to focus more on payroll going forward. The cell tower, again, we just make sure, as Dan indicated, We have schools that get the money and they disperse it to their feeder schools. We also have money that MCPS disperses themselves to schools. It goes two different ways. So we just want to make sure that the money, one, got dispersed, the correct amounts were dispersed, that the schools recorded it in the proper account, and that they're doing what they need to do with the cell tower money. Student parking is just for high schools, and we make sure that all the parking permits we have accountability for. So a school will get parking permits, they'll sell them, then they return them to us, and we do an audit just to have accountability for how many did you get, how many did you sell, how many did you return. Unfortunately, in this fiscal year, we did not have any parking. We did offer parking for free at the start of school, back to school, and then we are already in the process of getting the parking permits out to schools for this upcoming school year. Next slide. So we do a lot of assistance. Again, the internal audit is in charge of 3 of the finance manuals. Chapter 6 deals with auditing and internal controls and employee ethics. Chapter 7 is all of our cash management, cash handling procedures. And then Chapter 20 is the IAF. So we want to make sure that the schools have resources. We want to make sure that everything is in writing and everybody has the same information. So these finance manuals are a big resource for them, and they are located on the business center for everyone. The next one we do is a physical inventory testing, which we'll be doing at the end of this month. We go out to all 5 bus depots. We do a sampling of their inventory. We check the tires. We check with the big dipstick, we check the gas in the tanks. So we just make sure, that they have a process for their inventory because it's a lot of equipment out there. So we just double check on that and look at that. We do as Rob said, we were working with the accounting software updates. So we will be staying with the same company, but we will be assisting with the online payment, which is, I think it's going to be very exciting. It's cloud-based, and parents can do everything at one place, which is going to be really helpful for them. And we're hoping to get it in with the synergy, which will be the student-based information, and just going forward, get the technology up and running. And then again, we also help and assist as we do. We do all the trainings. We sit on all the trainings. We help with the material of the training. Any PLCs we can come and present at. And again, any assistance that they need, my team's there. And then the next slide. We do have a hotline or tip line that's maintained by Lighthouse Services. And so this year we got 19 complaints, but none of these complaints really were warranted into any in-depth investigation. Most of them, unfortunately, are just people not having all of the correct information. Some of it deals with students perhaps don't necessarily reside in Montgomery County and are going to a Montgomery County school. So I get all of the tip lines and I send them to the compliance unit, and they do most of the investigations unless it has to do with, payroll or any of the IAF information. And then anything that needs to, we get reported to the superintendent. But like I said, the ones that we got this year were fairly easy to just kind of look at and resolve, and then we report back. Next slide. And then any questions you might have? I'm sure you have a lot, but I'm ready.
So Dr. Docker, Ms. O'Neill, questions? Ms. O'Neill?
Yes. So it's my understanding that when we have a change of principals, you do an audit at that moment in time. Is that correct?
That is correct. So every year we get a list of all the new principals. What I do is I look to see when their last audit was. So if it was in the last 3 months, then we'll just come in and go over the audit report, because it wouldn't be beneficial to do a whole audit on just a few months. So we would just come in and have a discussion and go over the audit. If the prior principal did the action plan, we'll go over the action plan to make sure the new principal knows what's to be put in place to correct the audit findings. If it's been 6 to 8 months, then we will put it on the schedule and we do come out and do a new audit every time we have a new principal. We cannot do it every time we get a new finance person, but we do every time we get a new principal.
Okay, and then I have a question about the cell tower revenues. And is there one report that shows how much cell tower revenue went to what school every year? Do we publish that? I mean, I think that would be useful information for board members, because every time a cell tower is renewed or there's a request, there are some concerns out in the community. It would be helpful to me as a board member to see the breakdown of revenue that went to each school every year from cell towers.
So I do the audit every year, and it does get published, and in the audit is an appendix with all of the schools and the amount of money that they got.
Okay. I mean, it would be
separate if you would like it again.
It would be useful. I mean, to have it specifically that page or that document shared with board members. I mean, instead of having to dig through a report, I think it would be useful. And
absolutely. I mean, the cell tower is what we call free money. So we always tell the schools that, that's money that is not generated by the students. So it's a great source if they have staff development needs. They can use that money, because staff development has to be non-student money. We don't allow schools to use student-generated money for staff development. So again, that's what we consider the free money, and they can put that towards staff development.
Yeah, but, from a community interest and concerns there, about that specific topic, I think it would be useful or beneficial for board members to see that separately. Also, the issue about student fees, class fees, I know it's monitored and approved by OTSL, or Office of Teaching, Learning in Schools. We used to receive that report separately about what had been approved, what had been requested by schools. I mean, I know this past year was just an anomaly, a very unusual school year. But, I think that in terms of fees overall, I think that we need to go back to previous practices of monitoring that as a board.
Yeah, I do know that report goes out. I did not get a copy of it this year. I don't really know if any schools actually did any course fees, but they do have to do a plan and really justify now any course fees that they charge.
I just think proactively or prospectively, it is something that we should actually look at again, monitor.
And building on Ms. O'Neill's just immediate past question about school-based fees, I know one of the issues I heard about, and perhaps my colleagues did as well this year, was that apparently some of our high schools have a tradition of charging seniors a senior fee, which supposedly I don't know what it's supposed to pay for, but it's not, it is certainly not something that is done at every school. And I am not sure, is that something that we also look at or inquire into?
I mean, I do know schools do a class fee, and like you said, it is not the same at every school. And some schools, it just incorporates cap and gown. Some it includes a senior picnic or celebration. And there's no set guidelines. And
I think that's through Office of Teaching, Learning in Schools, where that approval, but, and it's my understanding it was cap and gowns, and some schools it's graduation announcements, it's a senior breakfast, but I think that it's a useful question that should go to Office of Teaching, Learning in Schools. MCPS paid for the caps and gowns and the yard signs. There were no fees. But I think, I don't know whether that's the intent for next year, but also we need to make sure that what the appropriate guidance is to schools and what, so there's not an undue hardship on any student in any school.
And Dr. Ducker, did you have any questions? I have a few. So first, MJ or Ms. Bergstresser, going back to the beginning when we were talking about the IAF, the audits, the school-to-school audits, and in the numbers that you kind of tallied up, fireworks for these schools, clean audits and that kind of thing. Altogether, that totaled up to a little less than half of our, so we got 208 schools right now, little less than half of the schools that had an audit this year. What is the typical process? Do we look at auditing a school every other year, every 3 years, more if there's an issue? What is the typical timeline?
So the typical timeline, if just all over, is elementary schools have to be done every 3 years, or should be done every 3 years. Middle schools is every 18 months, and high schools is every year. Again, what we're trying to do is more risk analysis. I've taken some of the high schools that have had back-to-back audits that were no findings and moved them out a little bit more. We've brought in some elementary schools and middle schools that had a lot of findings, and we're going to be coming back and revisiting them. So it's a mix of what we can accomplish. But typically, elementary, we try to do every 3 years, middle school 18, and high school 1 year.
Yeah, I know, MJ, the last year and a half, 2 years, you've tried to take a more risk-based approach to this, as you described. And if someone really is having issues, you go in much more regularly.
Absolutely. And also, if the audits have been good, we're going to try to just go in and do maybe a consolidated audit. Maybe just look at a few little things and say, you're still in good shape. You have good internal controls. You have the same people working here. They know what they're doing, and then get out.
Along those lines, could you, if there is such a thing, give sort of an example of the most common types of findings that your audits are generating?
So yeah, in the actual audit update that you should have gotten a copy of, I do go into the types of audits. The biggest finding we have is usually in procurement, purchasing, and that's because there's lots of parts to that. So we normally, it could be considered one finding, but we like to break it out because it's the pre-approval process that's very common at schools. I'm not saying that people are buying inappropriate things, but not always is it pre-approved by some of the methods we have. We allow schools to have budgets. We allow schools to use the JP Morgan card. We allow schools to ask the principal with an estimate. We allow schools to have a spending limit. They can give particular people a limit that doesn't need to be pre-approved. But part of the procurement also is that we have schools that aren't indicating on the receipt that the items were received satisfactorily. And that's important because if you order yearbooks or you order T-shirts, we don't want the schools paying for that if it's not right, if it didn't all come in. So that's one of the things that we're really pushing the schools. Other is stamping all the receipts paid so it doesn't get duplicated. And then we have issues with JP Morgan. So we kind of break that finding into 4 parts. So that's why it's the biggest. Again, the next is typically cash handling. The teachers don't bring the money down every day. And then the financial agent isn't getting to the bank when they need to. Field trips is another big one where the teachers are not turning in all of the information that they need to turn in. We have issues with some counting procedures, and we're seeing a lot of this, and we're trying to help the schools, things put in the wrong account, not using our district-wide accounts. We're really pushing schools to put the PTA money in our district-wide PTA account. So when the community does ask, how much money do PTAs give, I can get that answer. When schools put it in a field trip, I can't find it. So it shows that school maybe didn't get PTA support, but they did. So it's some accounting issues, field trips, fundraisers, admissions, but the two biggest are purchasing and cash handling.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you typically do a repeat audit when there's a change in principalship at a school, but you said not when the finance person at a school changes. So does your office, MJ, handle the professional development and the training of the finance people so that they are, continually getting updated on processes, procedures, expectations?
Yeah, so we do the school finance training online, which is SFO, that's the accounting software. And anyone new to the position must take the mandatory training, go through all the modules and learn the accounting program. We also have finance training, part 1 and part 2, that we assist with and we developed with Debbie Camp. So part 1 is mandatory for principals and school business administrators when you get the position. It is highly recommended that every 3 years they retake that training. Part 2 is mandatory for the school finance agent. We have had many principals that do come to part 2 and school business administrators that come to part 2, but it's not mandatory. And then again, we highly recommend that they take it every 3 years. This summer, we're going to be working on developing what we're calling the refresher course for the seasoned people. And it's going to combine 1 and 2, so they don't not have to sit through the big training. And then the big training, we can focus really on the people who are struggling and are new. So we're going to be working on developing a kind of a refresher, 4-hour, go through everything, and then the bigger one for other people.
Thank you. And circling back to Ms. O'Neill was asking about the cell tower revenue. So you mentioned, that is, goes to the schools and the feeder schools when it's a cell tower on the high school property. Do you do any kind of a look as to the uses to which schools are putting those funds? Or is it just, those are yours, you can use it for staff development, you can use it?
We do look at the cell tower. We don't allow schools to make disbursements out of that account because it's a commission account. So we want that money moved so we can see what they're spending it on. But that is, like I said before, one of the free monies. So there really aren't any limitations on that money. Some use it on staff development. Some put it towards their staff appreciation meeting refreshment accounts. Some put it in their general accounts. So there's all kinds of ways that schools can use that money. And again, we have them transfer it so we have a clear audit trail on how they did spend it. But we do look at that.
And then for the last question I have goes to, for the new folks here, me, could you talk a little bit more about the centralized investment funds and what we're doing to try to encourage participation by all schools, and then how we are looking, you said there's a 12 million balance in there. How are we looking to make the disbursements from that fund?
So, Rob can help on this one, but the CIF is the school's savings account, basically. So they take money that they aren't going to be needing in the checking account, and they can move it into the centralized investment account to earn interest. Every month, they get their interest and their expense, because there's a small operational expense with the CIF fund, into their account. So that CIF interest has a special account in the IF, and the expense has a special account. The CIF interest is, again, another great source to be used anyhow the school wants to. Staff development, staff appreciation, back to general, funding anything that they want. When we do an audit and we see a school, we do make this, normally it's not a report finding, it's just in our discussions, but we highly encourage schools to look at their checking account balances and move money into the CIF to generate income for them. And then if we see a school does not have a CIF, we encourage them. But Rob might be able to answer the rest of it because his department deals with the finance part.
Yeah, another way we try to promote that is at the annual meeting, me and my staff will make a presentation to the folks that are putting the money in, and just letting them know that sometimes there's a fear that, hey, we're going to put it in and it's going to be hard to get back. But over the years, we've made that process so easy. It gets done via ACH and it can be done within 48 hours. So there's really no risk of putting too much money into the centralized investment fund. And we've seen, like MJ said, the amount is there. The other function is interest rates happen to be low right now. So they're not getting as much interest as they did 2 years ago. But we did see there was more of an incentive because people were putting it in more when that interest rate rises. But we do want to make it part of their business process where they don't have too much idle cash. They can kind of say, hey, I have 40,000 here. Well, 40 is a big number, I guess. I have 5,000 here. I'm going to put that in centralized investment fund. Even if I need it 2 months from now, I can get it back easily. We try to promote that philosophy.
Okay, so
I'm sorry, Rob, please remind me, but wasn't our only finding in our annual financial report that we had a school that had that the auditor thought was too much in their IAF and recommended we move it because of just basic insurance of financial institutions, so that we split the funding from an IAF bank account into a central investment account. Is that true?
Yeah, you're right. It was their operating fund had more than the FDIC amount. So that's another reason why we would try to promote, splitting that or moving the funds into the CIF.
okay.
And
So what?
Sorry. I was just going to say, the CIF and the checking, those two balances together, they add up to all of the money they have in their independent activity accounts. So you have all of your independent activity accounts, and then they split it between their checking and their savings.
So, one of the projects that a lot of the advocates and the allies have been trying to work with MCPS on for a while, and with some support, from the superintendent, was finding a way to better equalize the fundraising and the funds available to the schools across the county for initiatives to support students. And, one of the things that's always been tossed around is creating a common fund that PTSAs and others could donate to, and it would be available for the use of any school. So that is not this. That common fund goes straight back to the schools from which it came. So, so you mentioned something about balances there, Rob, that, or Ms. Riley, when and there was an audit finding or that, a school's balance had just gotten larger than recommended. And so they strongly suggested that overage go into the centralized investment fund. Are there any protocols around how big these IAFs can get? And when we're seeing these with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in them, and the length of time during which monies accrued fundraising have to be present in that account before they need to be spent on behalf of the students for whom it was raised, or by whom it was raised.
Yeah, and I don't know if we addressed that in any of the chapters, MJ. Like Dan had mentioned, the idea is that we want to kind of, the goal is to, any money raised for the students in that year will go to those students, but it just, because of timing, it's almost impossible. But we can look at consistency. In any given year, all the school's funds totally are, let's say, $15 million. There's 25 million in, 25 million out, and then we end up with 15. So I've looked at the past 10 years. That's been pretty consistent. So it's almost like Dan was saying, it's kind of paying forward your, whatever you get at the end is going for the next school class, but then, it worked the other way as well too. But that's a good question. I'll look in our financial manual to see if we get more specific than that.
Any other questions on this last bit?
Yeah, to your point, your earlier point, Lynn, about a common fund, a community or equity fund. I mean, both Dr. Smith and Dr. Starr had pulled together community organizations, various stakeholders to look at this because there is inequity, and I know that the Portland, Oregon had an equity fund where every group contributed. While those two superintendents looked at that issue, it has not gone anywhere, nor did we establish a policy or any kind of regulation about that. There were some logistics and some legal implications involved. There is an interest, but it has not gone anywhere. And some of it I think the pandemic overshadowed everything else. I have one question about the parking permits. Do we have a flat parking permit across all high schools? Is that central? Obviously, it'd be centrally approved, or is there variation among schools?
So it's centrally approved, and so we have it broken out. Typically, it's $37.50 a semester or $75 for the whole year. We have a few schools that they like to split it into 3, so it's $25. So it's really related more to sports. We also, if a student might not get their driver's license until halfway through the year or into the second semester, a school will reduce it to $18.50. But it is centralized. We have a regulation on parking and the fees are set. So every school has the same set of fees for everybody.
But not the same number of parking spaces.
Not the same number of parking spaces. And some there's a lot, some there's a lottery. So.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Dr. Daka, any last questions? Okay, well, as always, thanks to everybody for all the work and helping us all understand this better and being really our partners as the Fiscal Management Committee, does what we are empowered and expected to do, and kind of keeping our eyes on the fiscal house of the school system. So thank you, everybody. Have a good day. And we will see you again. I can't remember when our next meeting is. I'm looking at Ms. Webb to help me out. August?
September 21st.
Thank you. So see you. Most of you, we won't be seeing Mr. Morella. He'll be on the golf course. September 20th. Oh, I see Becky put in the chat. September 20th. Okay. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.